The ships appeared without warning on a Tuesday morning. They came from the dark spaces between stars, massive and terrible, blotting out the sun over every major city on Earth. Admiral Chen Wei was drinking coffee in his office at the Pacific Defense Command when the alarm started screaming. By the time he reached the command center, it was already too late. The first missiles humanity launched never reached their targets. They exploded harmlessly against invisible barriers that surrounded the alien vessels. The second wave of attacks met the same fate. Then the aliens fired back and the sky turned to fire. Cities vanished in seconds. Los Angeles became a crater of melted glass. Tokyo simply disappeared beneath a beam of purple light that carved through buildings like they were made of paper. Moscow, Beijing, London, Cairo, one by one, the great cities of Earth died. Admiral Chen watched the screens in horror as the death toll climbed past 1 million, then 10 million, then stopped counting because the numbers became meaningless. Dr. Sarah Okonkwo was in Geneva when the aliens came. She had been presenting her research on quantum field manipulation to a room full of scientists from 40 nations. They were arguing about theoretical applications when the ceiling exploded inward. Sarah looked up and saw something impossible. A ship the size of a mountain hovering above the city, its hull covered in symbols that hurt to look at directly. The beam came next. It was almost beautiful, she thought later, when the nightmares let her think at all. A column of light so bright it turned the world white. Then the heat came and the screaming, and Sarah was running through corridors that were melting around her. She made it to the emergency bunker 3 levels down, along with maybe 24 others. When they finally emerged 2 days later, Geneva was gone. Just gone. In its place was a smooth bowl of fused rock that still glowed red in the darkness. Marcus Torres was luckier, if anyone could be called lucky during those days. He was on leave in the Rocky Mountains camping with his daughter when the invasion began. They saw the lights in the sky and heard the distant thunder of dying cities. Marcus was a Marine, trained for combat, but he knew immediately that this was beyond anything humanity could fight. He grabbed his daughter and headed deeper into the mountains, away from anything that might draw the aliens' attention. The invasion lasted 18 days. 18 days of systematic destruction. The aliens, humanity would later learn they called themselves the Zelkoth hegemony, moved across Earth like exterminators clearing out vermin. They targeted military bases first, then government centers, then anything that looked like it might house resistance. Earth's orbital defenses were swept aside like toys. The moon base fell silent after broadcasting one final message. They're in the tunnels. Then nothing. The Zelkoth were methodical. They didn't speak to humanity, didn't demand surrender, didn't negotiate. They simply killed and destroyed until there was nothing left to fight back. Earth's military forces, so proud and powerful, were reduced to scattered groups of survivors hiding in caves and ruins. On the 18th day, the broadcasts began. Every screen on Earth, every radio, every device that could receive a signal suddenly activated. The face that appeared was not human. It had 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern on a head that looked like a wedge of blue-gray stone. When it spoke, the words were translated by technology humanity didn't understand. Attention. Indigenous population of Planet 37 Alpha, the alien said. Its voice was flat, without emotion. You have been classified as Level 2 sentience, possessing tool use and basic technology but lacking true civilization. Your world has been claimed by the Zelkoth hegemony as mining territory 447. Your presence is no longer required. Those who surrender will be processed efficiently. Those who resist will be eliminated. You have 12 hours to comply. Admiral Chen watched the broadcast from a bunker buried under 2 miles of granite in Colorado. Around him, what remained of Earth's command structure sat in stunned silence. Someone was crying. Someone else was laughing, high and wild. Chen felt neither emotion. He felt only a cold, burning rage, sir. His aide's voice was shaky. What do we do? Chen looked at the young man, barely 25, his uniform torn and dirty, eyes haunted by things he'd seen. We survive, Chen said quietly. And we remember. That's all we can do now. The 12 hours passed. Most of humanity didn't surrender because there was nowhere to surrender to. The Zelkoth simply assumed compliance and began their mining operations. Massive machines descended from orbit, tearing into Earth's crust to extract minerals that humanity didn't even have names for. They set up processing plants in the ruins of Sydney, in the ashes of New York, in the crater that had been Berlin. Dr. Okonkwo made her way north through what remained of Europe. She found other survivors, small groups hiding in forests and mountains. They shared what little they had: food, water, stories of horror. Everyone had lost someone. Everyone had seen things that would never leave their minds. Sarah found herself becoming a leader without meaning to. People looked to her for answers because she was a scientist, because she seemed calm, because someone had to make decisions. They eventually found an abandoned Cold War bunker in the Alps. It had been built to survive nuclear war, and by some miracle the aliens hadn't noticed it. Sarah and her group, 43 people ranging from a French farmer to a Chinese engineer, moved in and made it home. They had food for maybe 6 months. After that, they'd have to risk going to the surface. Marcus Torres and his daughter found a network of caves in the Rockies. Other survivors were already there, maybe 300 people, military and civilian mixed together. They had weapons, some supplies, and determination. A young lieutenant tried to organize an attack, talking about honor and duty and fighting back. Marcus shot him down immediately. "We can't fight them," Marcus said flatly, his daughter pressed against his side. "Not now. Maybe not ever. But we can survive. We can wait. And if the chance comes, we can make them pay. But right now, survival is the only thing that matters." The lieutenant wanted to argue, but he looked around at the faces in the cave, scared, tired, broken, and nodded slowly. Survival. That was the mission now. The Zelkoth finished their initial operations and prepared to leave. They'd extracted what they came for, killed or scattered the native population, and left behind a garrison of perhaps 10,000 soldiers to oversee the ongoing mining. The main fleet, hundreds of ships, lifted away from Earth and vanished into the dark between stars. Before they left, the Zelkoth commander made one final broadcast. "This world is now property of the hegemony," the alien said. "It will be mined until nothing of value remains. In 50 of your years, perhaps less, this planet will be a barren rock. We tell you this not as a threat, but as a simple fact. You are not important enough to threaten. You are not strong enough to resist. You are simply in the way, and now you have been moved. Any who remain and do not interfere will be ignored. Any who interfere will be eliminated. This is the only warning you will receive." The broadcast ended. The ships left. And Earth, wounded and dying, fell into darkness. Admiral Chen stood in the bunker's command center, looking at the maps that showed where survivors had been located. Millions were dead, but millions more had survived. Humans were cockroaches, Chen thought bitterly. Hard to kill completely. The aliens had made a mistake. Not a big one, but a mistake nonetheless. They'd assumed humanity was broken. They'd assumed the survivors would simply wait to die. "Send messages to all survivor groups," Chen ordered. "Tell them to hide. Tell them to watch. Tell them to learn. The aliens left ships, left bodies, left technology. We study it. We reverse engineer it. We figure out how it works." "Sir, that could take decades," his aide said. Chen smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. "Then we have decades to plan. The Zelkoth think we're beaten. They think we're animals that know when we're defeated. They're wrong. We're humans, and humans have a very simple rule. Hurt us and we hurt you back. They burned our cities. They killed our families. They think we'll forget. They think we'll give up." He looked at the screens showing Earth's devastated surface. Somewhere up there, alien soldiers were congratulating themselves on a job well done. Somewhere up there they felt safe. "We'll show them what humans do when you take everything from them," Chen said softly. "We'll show them what happens when you don't finish the job." They wanted to make an example of Earth. They wanted to show the galaxy what happens to primitive species. Fine. We'll be an example, just not the one they expected. Dr. Okonkwo opened her laptop in the bunker, powered by a small generator they'd salvaged. She began documenting everything she remembered about the alien technology she'd seen, the way their shields worked, the frequency of their weapons. Every detail, no matter how small, went into her files. Marcus Torres organized the survivors in the caves into watch rotations and scavenging parties. They needed food, water, medicine, but more than that, they needed weapons. Human weapons had been useless against the aliens, but the aliens had left behind their own weapons. Torres started planning raids on the mining facilities. Quiet raids, careful raids, take what they could and vanish before the garrison noticed. In orbit, the Zelkoth garrison commander filed his report. Planet pacified. Native resistance eliminated. Mining operations proceeding on schedule. Recommend classification change from active conflict to secured territory. The report was approved without review. After all, the natives were just primitives. What could they possibly do? On Earth, in caves and bunkers and hidden places scattered across a broken world, millions of survivors asked themselves the same question. What could they do? The answer would take time to find. But humans had time now. Time to heal. Time to learn. Time to plan. The Zelkoth had made Earth a graveyard. They didn't realize they'd also made it a training ground. They didn't realize that the survivors hiding in the dark weren't waiting to die. They were waiting for their chance. And humans were very, very good at waiting for the right moment to strike. 8 years passed. 8 years of hiding, surviving, and learning. The Earth that existed before was gone forever. But something new was growing in its place. Something harder. Something that knew how to hate. Dr. Sarah Okonkwo had become one of the most important people in the resistance without really meaning to. Her bunker in the Alps had grown from 43 people to nearly 2,000. They'd connected with other bunkers through carefully hidden communication lines. More importantly, Sarah had become humanity's leading expert on Zelkoth technology. The breakthrough came in the 3rd year. A scavenging team had recovered a damaged Zelkoth power core from a crashed patrol ship. Sarah spent 6 months taking it apart, piece by piece, figuring out how it worked. The technology was advanced, yes, but it wasn't magic. It followed rules. Rules that could be understood, replicated, and eventually improved. It's actually inefficient, Sarah explained to Admiral Chen during one of their rare video conferences. The encryption was crude but effective. The Zelkoth weren't looking for human communications because they assumed there was nothing worth listening to. They're using a brute force approach to energy generation. More power than finesse. We can do better. How much better? Chen asked. He looked older than he had 8 years ago. They all did. Maybe 20% more efficient, which means our ships could run longer, hit harder, or move faster than theirs. Pick 2 out of 3. I'll take all 3, Chen said dryly. What else have we learned? Sarah pulled up diagrams on her screen. Their weapons are plasma-based, but the containment system has a flaw. There's a quarter-second delay between firing cycles. A skilled pilot could exploit that. Their shields are strong against energy weapons, but weaker against kinetic impacts. They don't expect anyone to use bullets and missiles because most spacefaring species consider them primitive. Primitive, Chen repeated, smiling coldly. Good. Let them think that. The Resistance had learned other things too. Things that changed everything about how humanity viewed the universe. They'd made contact with the Thren. The Thren were the first alien species humanity met that weren't trying to kill them. They were small, barely 4 feet tall, covered in fine gray fur. They had been a spacefaring civilization once with colonies on 6 worlds. Then the Zelkoth came. Then the Krell Dominion came. The Thren lost their colonies one by one until only a few thousand remained, hiding in the asteroids and dark places between worlds. A Thren scout ship had picked up human radio signals and, curious, investigated. What they found shocked them. Humans were still fighting, still resisting. Most species just gave up after their homeworld fell. The Thren had given up, but humans hadn't, and the Thren elder who commanded the scout ship made a decision that would change everything. He helped them. Marcus Torres was present when the first Thren ship landed in a hidden valley in Montana. He and his people had weapons raised, ready to fight, ready to die if necessary. Then the hatch opened and out stepped something that looked like a teddy bear with 6 fingers and sad, intelligent eyes. "We mean no harm," the Thren said in halting English, learned from intercepted broadcasts. "We come to help. If you want help." Marcus kept his rifle pointed at the alien for a long moment. Then he lowered it slowly. "Why?" The Thren looked at him with those sad eyes. "Because someone should. Because we gave up. Because maybe you won't." That was the beginning of a strange alliance. The Thren taught humans about the galaxy, about the 7 great empires that divided the stars between them. The Zelkoth hegemony was actually one of the smaller ones. The Krell Dominion controlled twice as much space. The vast coalition, the Thorn Empire, the Crystalline Collective, the Mulsith Dynasty, and the Federation of Azure Suns. All of them were vast, ancient, and powerful. They had been fighting each other for thousands of years. But it was a strange kind of fighting. Ritualized, civilized, they had rules. You didn't destroy civilian populations. You didn't use certain weapons. You didn't attack homeworlds. You fought for territory, for resources, for honor. But you followed the rules. The rules keep them stable, the Thren elder explained to a gathering of human leaders. No empire can truly destroy another without breaking the rules. And if you break the rules, all the others unite against you. So they fight small wars, border skirmishes, disputes over mining rights. They've been doing this for longer than your species has existed. Why did they break the rules with us? Sarah asked. Why did they destroy Earth? The Thren looked uncomfortable. You are not considered people. Humanity has no seat in the Galactic Council. You have no treaties. You are classified as primitives. Pre-spaceflight species have no rights under galactic law. They can do whatever they want to you because you don't count. The room fell silent. Finally, Admiral Chen spoke. Then we'll make them count us. One way or another, the Thren provided more than knowledge. They provided star charts, showing where the 7 empires had their borders. They showed where Earth was, right at the junction between Zelkoth, Krell, and Vask territories. A strategically valuable location, which was why the Zelkoth had claimed it so aggressively. They also provided technology, not weapons. The Thren didn't have weapons anymore, had dismantled them all after their final defeat. But they had sensors, communications equipment, and most importantly, faster-than-light drive specifications. We can't give you ships, the Thren elder said. We don't have ships to give, but we can teach you to build them. Humanity built ships. In the asteroid belt, where the Zelkoth never bothered to look, massive construction facilities took shape. Mars had been abandoned by everyone. The aliens saw no value in the red planet. That's where humanity built their shipyards. On Europa, under the ice, more facilities grew. The ships they built were ugly by galactic standards. Human engineering was rough, improvised using salvaged alien technology combined with human innovation. Where alien ships were elegant and symmetrical, human ships were angular and brutal-looking. They mounted human railguns alongside Zelkoth plasma cannons. They used Thren sensors and jury-rigged systems that no sane engineer would approve of, and they worked. The first major ship completed in Year 7 was christened the Retribution. It was barely 200 meters long, tiny by the standards of galactic warships, but it could move fast, hit hard, and most importantly, its crew was trained for one purpose, making the aliens hurt. Marcus Torres took command of the Retribution. He'd spent 8 years leading ground forces, but someone had to take the fight to space, and Marcus volunteered. His daughter was 19 now, safe in one of the deep bunkers, training to be an engineer like Dr. Okonkwo. She'd made him promise to come back. He'd promised to try. The Retribution's first mission was supposed to be a simple reconnaissance, fly to the edge of the system, observe Zelkoth patrols, gather data. But Marcus and his crew found something better. They found a Zelkoth supply ship, alone and vulnerable, carrying processed minerals from Earth. What do you think? His second-in-command asked. Do we watch or do we act? Marcus thought about his wife, who'd died when Los Angeles became a crater. He thought about the billions of humans who'd died in those first 18 days. He thought about 8 years of hiding like rats in the dark. We act, he said. Hit them fast. Hit them hard. Show them that humans still have teeth. The battle lasted 11 minutes. The Zelkoth supply ship never saw them coming. The Retribution used stealth systems adapted from submarine technology, primitive by alien standards but effective. They got within 2 kilometers before opening fire. Railguns punched through the supply ship's shields like they weren't there. Missiles followed, crude but destructive. The Zelkoth ship tried to fight back, but it was designed for cargo, not combat. 8 years passed. 8 years of hiding, surviving, and learning. The Earth that existed before was gone forever. But something new was growing in its place. Something harder. Something that knew how to hate. Dr. Sarah Okonkwo had become one of the most important people in the resistance without really meaning to. Her bunker in the Alps had grown from 43 people to nearly 2,000. They'd connected with other bunkers through carefully hidden communication lines. More importantly, Sarah had become humanity's leading expert on Zelkoth technology. The breakthrough came in the 3rd year. The scavenging team had recovered a damaged Zelkoth power core from a crashed patrol ship. Sarah spent 6 months taking it apart, piece by piece, figuring out how it worked. The technology was advanced, yes, but it wasn't magic. It followed rules. Rules that could be understood, replicated, and eventually improved. It's actually inefficient, Sarah explained to Admiral Chen during one of their rare video conferences. The encryption was crude but effective. The Zelkoth weren't looking for human communications because they assumed there was nothing worth listening to. They're using a brute force approach to energy generation. More power than finesse. We can do better. How much better? Chen asked. He looked older than he had 8 years ago. They all did. Maybe 20% more efficient, which means our ships could run longer, hit harder, or move faster than theirs. Pick 2 out of 3. I'll take all 3, Chen said dryly. What else have we learned? Sarah pulled up diagrams on her screen. Their weapons are plasma-based, but the containment system has a flaw. There's a quarter-second delay between firing cycles. A skilled pilot could exploit that. Their shields are strong against energy weapons, but weaker against kinetic impacts. They don't expect anyone to use bullets and missiles because most spacefaring species consider them primitive. Primitive, Chen repeated, smiling coldly. Good. Let them think that. The Resistance had learned other things too. Things that changed everything about how humanity viewed the universe. They'd made contact with the Thren. The Thren were the first alien species humanity met that weren't trying to kill them. They were small, barely 4 feet tall, covered in fine gray fur. They had been a spacefaring civilization once with colonies on 6 worlds. Then the Zelkoth came. Then the Krell Dominion came. The Thren lost their colonies one by one until only a few thousand remained, hiding in the asteroids and dark places between worlds. A Thren scout ship had picked up human radio signals and, curious, investigated. What they found shocked them. Humans were still fighting, still resisting. Most species just gave up after their homeworld fell. The Thren had given up, but humans hadn't, and the Thren elder who commanded the scout ship made a decision that would change everything. He helped them. Marcus Torres was present when the first Thren ship landed in a hidden valley in Montana. He and his people had weapons raised, ready to fight, ready to die if necessary. Then the hatch opened and out stepped something that looked like a teddy bear with 6 fingers and sad, intelligent eyes. We mean no harm, the Thren said in halting English, learned from intercepted broadcasts. We come to help. If you want help. Marcus kept his rifle pointed at the alien for a long moment. Then he lowered it slowly. Why? The Thren looked at him with those sad eyes. Because someone should. Because we gave up. Because maybe you won't. That was the beginning of a strange alliance. The Thren taught humans about the galaxy, about the 7 great empires that divided the stars between them. The Zelkoth hegemony was actually one of the smaller ones. The Krell Dominion controlled twice as much space. The vast coalition, the Thorn Empire, the Crystalline Collective, the Mulsith Dynasty, and the Federation of Azure Suns. All of them were vast, ancient, and powerful. They had been fighting each other for thousands of years. But it was a strange kind of fighting. Ritualized, civilized, they had rules. You didn't destroy civilian populations. You didn't use certain weapons. You didn't attack homeworlds. You fought for territory, for resources, for honor. But you followed the rules. The rules keep them stable, the Thren elder explained to a gathering of human leaders. No empire can truly destroy another without breaking the rules. And if you break the rules, all the others unite against you. So they fight small wars, border skirmishes, disputes over mining rights. They've been doing this for longer than your species has existed. Why did they break the rules with us? Sarah asked. Why did they destroy Earth? The Thren looked uncomfortable. You are not considered people. Humanity has no seat in the Galactic Council. You have no treaties. You are classified as primitives. Pre-spaceflight species have no rights under galactic law. They can do whatever they want to you because you don't count. The room fell silent. Finally, Admiral Chen spoke. Then we'll make them count us. One way or another, the Thren provided more than knowledge. They provided star charts, showing where the 7 empires had their borders. They showed where Earth was, right at the junction between Zelkoth, Krell, and Vask territories. A strategically valuable location, which was why the Zelkoth had claimed it so aggressively. They also provided technology, not weapons. The Thren didn't have weapons anymore, had dismantled them all after their final defeat. But they had sensors, communications equipment, and most importantly, faster-than-light drive specifications. We can't give you ships, the Thren elder said. We don't have ships to give, but we can teach you to build them. Humanity built ships. In the asteroid belt, where the Zelkoth never bothered to look, massive construction facilities took shape. Mars had been abandoned by everyone. The aliens saw no value in the red planet. That's where humanity built their shipyards. On Europa, under the ice, more facilities grew. The ships they built were ugly by galactic standards. Human engineering was rough, improvised using salvaged alien technology combined with human innovation. Where alien ships were elegant and symmetrical, human ships were angular and brutal-looking. They mounted human railguns alongside Zelkoth plasma cannons. They used Thren sensors and jury-rigged systems that no sane engineer would approve of, and they worked. The first major ship completed in Year 7 was christened the Retribution. It was barely 200 meters long, tiny by the standards of galactic warships, but it could move fast, hit hard, and most importantly, its crew was trained for one purpose: making the aliens hurt. Marcus Torres took command of the Retribution. He'd spent 8 years leading ground forces, but someone had to take the fight to space, and Marcus volunteered. His daughter was 19 now, safe in one of the deep bunkers, training to be an engineer like Dr. Okonkwo. She'd made him promise to come back. He'd promised to try. The Retribution's first mission was supposed to be a simple reconnaissance: fly to the edge of the system, observe Zelkoth patrols, gather data. But Marcus and his crew found something better. They found a Zelkoth supply ship, alone and vulnerable, carrying processed minerals from Earth. "What do you think?" his second-in-command asked. "Do we watch or do we act?" Marcus thought about his wife, who'd died when Los Angeles became a crater. He thought about the billions of humans who'd died in those first 18 days. He thought about 8 years of hiding like rats in the dark. "We act," he said. "Hit them fast. Hit them hard. Show them that humans still have teeth." The battle lasted 11 minutes. The Zelkoth supply ship never saw them coming. The Retribution used stealth systems adapted from submarine technology, primitive by alien standards but effective. They got within 2 kilometers before opening fire. Railguns punched through the supply ship's shields like they weren't there. Missiles followed, crude but destructive. The Zelkoth ship tried to fight back, but it was designed for cargo, not combat. When it was over, Marcus ordered his crew to salvage what they could and then destroy the evidence. No survivors. No witnesses, no mercy. "Sir," his communications officer said nervously, "we just killed Zelkoth soldiers. They'll retaliate. They'll come looking." "Let them look," Marcus said coldly. "Let them wonder who attacked their ship. Let them worry about the dark between the stars. Let them feel afraid." Word of the attack spread through the human resistance like wildfire. They'd struck back. After 8 years of hiding, of running, of dying slowly, they'd finally hit the aliens. It wasn't much, 1 supply ship, maybe 40 aliens dead. But it was something. It was a beginning. Admiral Chen authorized more raids. Small, quick strikes against isolated targets, mining facilities, patrol ships, communication stations. Human forces learned to fight dirty. They didn't challenge the aliens to fair battles. They ambushed, sabotaged, and vanished. They used tactics that the civilized empires considered beneath them: deception, traps, false surrenders followed by suicide attacks. "They fight without honor," a Zelkoth patrol commander reported after his convoy was ambushed. Half his ships had been destroyed by mines that looked like space debris. "These humans have no concept of proper warfare." "They're primitives," his superior replied. "They don't understand the rules. Increase patrols in that sector and eliminate any human vessels you encounter." But the humans didn't stay in any sector long enough to be eliminated. They'd strike and fade away. Dr. Okonkwo called it guerrilla warfare in 3 dimensions. The Zelkoth didn't have a name for it. They just knew it was frustrating. By Year 8, humanity had 12 combat ships. Not a fleet, not really, but enough to be noticed. They'd also started mining operations of their own, pulling resources from asteroids the aliens ignored. Human engineers had gotten very good at building weapons from scrap. The Thren watched humanity's progress with a mixture of hope and fear. "You're doing things we never imagined," the elder told Sarah during one of his visits to the Alpine bunker. "You're fighting back against an empire that conquered 100 worlds. But please understand, the Zelkoth are only one empire. There are 6 others, some much stronger. If they decide humanity is a threat, then they'll try to destroy us," Sarah said calmly. "They already tried that. We're still here. We're not going away. We're not giving up. And every day we get stronger." "I hope your confidence is not misplaced," the Thren said quietly. "So do I," Sarah admitted. But confidence is all we have. That and anger. We have lots of anger. The raids continued. The Zelkoth garrison on Earth started reporting irregularities. Mining equipment would malfunction. Workers would disappear. Small outposts would go silent. And when reinforcements arrived, they'd find everyone dead and the base stripped of anything valuable. "It's the humans," the garrison commander reported to his superiors. "The primitive species. They're still resisting. We need more troops." "You have 10,000 soldiers," came the reply. "That should be sufficient to handle primitives. Do your job or we'll find someone who can." The garrison commander seethed but obeyed. He increased security, sent out more patrols, authorized lethal force against any humans found outside designated survival zones. It didn't help. The humans were like ghosts. They were everywhere and nowhere. In the deep bunkers and hidden bases, human survivors gathered around screens to watch footage of successful raids. They saw Zelkoth ships burning. They saw mining facilities exploding. They saw proof that the aliens could bleed, and they smiled. For the first time in 8 years, humanity smiled with something other than pain. They smiled with hope, with determination, with the knowledge that they weren't defeated. Not yet, maybe not ever. Admiral Chen looked at the star charts that showed human territory, a pitifully small area compared to the vast empires that ruled the galaxy. But it was growing, slowly, carefully, but growing. 8 years, he said to his assembled commanders during a virtual meeting. 8 years since they burned our world. 8 years since billions died. We've spent that time surviving, learning, building. Now we enter phase 2. We stop surviving and start fighting. We take back our system. We take back our world. And then we show the galaxy what happens when you underestimate humanity. The vote was unanimous. It was time to go on the offensive. In orbit around Earth, a Zelkoth patrol ship completed its routine scan of the planet. Everything seemed normal. Mining quotas were being met. The garrison reported no significant issues. The patrol commander noted the absence of human activity in his log and moved on to the next sector. He never saw the Retribution and her sister ships watching from the shadows of the asteroid belt, their weapons charged, their crews ready. He never imagined that the humans had grown from scattered survivors into something that could genuinely threaten his empire. He would learn soon enough. They all would. The attack on the Zelkoth garrison came without warning, just as Earth's destruction had come without warning. Marcus Torres believed in poetic justice. It was year 9. Humanity now had 37 combat ships, ranging from small fighters to the heavy cruiser Defiance. They weren't much compared to a real fleet, but they were crewed by people who had nothing left to lose and everything to avenge. The plan was Admiral Chen's, refined by Dr. Okonkwo's intelligence analysis and executed by Marcus's combat teams. They would hit every Zelkoth facility on Earth simultaneously. No half measures, no mercy. They would show the galaxy that humanity wasn't just resisting, humanity was at war. The attack began at 0600 hours. Greenwich Mean Time. That particular time zone didn't really exist anymore, but old habits died hard. Human forces struck 17 mining complexes, 3 military bases, and the main garrison headquarters all within a 15-minute window. Marcus led the assault on the headquarters personally. His ship Retribution dropped from orbit with 3 other vessels, all stealth systems active until the last possible moment. The Zelkoth base was built in what used to be Cairo, and it was massive. 5 square kilometers of alien architecture sitting on top of ancient human history. "All units, weapons free," Marcus ordered. "Remember, we're not here to capture. We're here to send a message." The first railgun shots punched through the base's shields before the aliens even knew they were under attack. Plasma cannons followed, raking across defensive positions. Human fighters screamed through the sky, dropping bombs that Sarah had designed, crude thermobaric weapons that humans had used for centuries, but aliens had never bothered developing because they were too primitive. The Zelkoth fought back. Their defense turrets tracked targets and fired, destroying 2 human fighters in the first minute. But the fighters were piloted by volunteers who'd said goodbye to their families knowing they might not return. They pressed their attacks with a ferocity that shocked the defenders. On the ground, human special forces teams hit the base from underground. 8 years of living in tunnels and caves had taught humanity how to move beneath the surface. They came up inside the base perimeter, armed with captured Zelkoth weapons and human explosives. They hit supply depots, command centers, barracks. The battle lasted 4 hours. When it was over, the Zelkoth garrison headquarters was a smoking crater and more than 2,000 alien soldiers were dead. Human losses were significant. 8 ships destroyed, 300 ground troops killed, but they'd accomplished the impossible. They destroyed the heart of the occupation force. Marcus stood in the ruins of the alien command center, looking at the body of the garrison commander. The alien's 4 eyes stared sightlessly at the sky. "You should have finished the job," Marcus said quietly. "You should have made sure we were all dead. Now you'll never get the chance." The other attacks were equally successful. By the end of the day, the Zelkoth presence on Earth was reduced by 70%. The remaining aliens retreated to fortified positions and sent desperate messages requesting reinforcements. Admiral Chen addressed all of humanity in a broadcast that reached every bunker, every cave, every hidden settlement. "Today we proved something. We proved that we can fight back. We proved that the aliens aren't invincible. They came to our world and thought they could take everything. They were wrong. Earth is our home and we're taking it back. This is just the beginning." The Zelkoth response came 3 weeks later. A fleet of 40 warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the solar system. They weren't here to mine or occupy. They were here to exterminate. "All human vessels will surrender immediately," the Zelkoth fleet commander broadcasted. "You have violated the terms of your pacification. You have killed hegemony citizens. The penalty is extinction. You have 1 hour to respond." Marcus was in command of the human fleet, if you could call it that. 29 ships against 40, and the alien ships were each 3 to 5 times larger than the human vessels. By any reasonable calculation, this was suicide. "Opinions?" Marcus asked his command staff. "We can't win a straight fight," his tactical officer said. "They outgun us, outman us, and their shields are stronger." "Then we don't fight straight," Marcus replied. He opened a channel to all ships. "Listen up. We're not doing this by their rules. We're doing this our way. Chen, Sarah, and I have been planning for this. Trust the plan and trust your crews. We're going to show these bastards what asymmetric warfare really means." The human fleet didn't retreat to defend Earth. Instead, they scattered. Some ships headed for the asteroid belt. Some dove toward the sun. A few appeared to flee toward the outer system. The Zelkoth fleet hesitated, confused by the disorganized response. "They're running," the fleet commander said with satisfaction. "Pursue and destroy. Show no mercy, that was the mistake." The Zelkoth divided their forces to chase down the fleeing humans. They expected quick victories against scared, desperate enemies. What they got was something entirely different. The first Zelkoth ship to reach the asteroid belt found itself surrounded by human vessels that had been hiding in the rocks. They attacked from all sides, using tactics that no civilized species would consider. They launched missiles with no guidance systems, just dumb rockets on ballistic courses that the aliens didn't even try to intercept because they looked like debris. Until they hit, the Zelkoth ship's shields handled the first few impacts. Then a human ship rammed it at full speed, its crew having evacuated in an escape pod seconds before. The kamikaze attack broke through the shields, and the remaining human ships poured fire into the breach. The alien ship broke apart, spilling atmosphere and bodies into space. "What are they doing?" the Zelkoth fleet commander demanded as reports came in. "Ramming attacks. Suicide tactics. This is barbaric." "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the human vessels," his communications officer said. "Put it through." Marcus Torres's face appeared on the screen. "You wanted to know what we're doing? We're fighting a war. Not your polite, civilized, rule-bound conflicts. A real war, the kind where you throw everything you have at the enemy because losing isn't an option. You killed billions of us. Did you think we'd follow your rules after that? You cannot win," the Zelkoth commander said. "We outnumber you. We are stronger." "Maybe," Marcus agreed. "But you want to know the difference between us? You're fighting for territory, for resources, for your empire. We're fighting for survival, for revenge, for our home. And we'll do anything to win. Can you say the same?" The transmission ended. The battle continued. The human ships led the Zelkoth fleet into a deadly game of cat and mouse. They used the sun's gravity to slingshot around at high speeds. They hid in radiation zones where sensors didn't work well. They deployed millions of tiny mines made from hollowed-out asteroids filled with explosives. Cheap, primitive, effective. Dr. Okonkwo's innovation came into play next. She developed what she called the Screamer, a cyber warfare program designed specifically for Zelkoth computer systems. Human ships got close enough to enemy vessels to upload the virus, then retreated. The Screamer didn't destroy systems immediately. It waited, spreading through the fleet's networked computers, learning their protocols. Then, at a signal from Sarah watching from Earth, the Screamer activated. Zelkoth ships suddenly found their sensors showing false readings. Their weapons targeting systems became unreliable. Their communications were filled with garbage data. For a species that relied heavily on computerized warfare, it was devastating. Manual control, the Zelkoth commander ordered. Switch to manual targeting. But manual systems were slower, and in the seconds it took for crews to switch over, human ships struck with precision. They'd been using manual targeting all along. Their systems were too jury-rigged to be fully automated anyway. The battle lasted 9 hours. When it was over, 19 Zelkoth ships were destroyed or crippled. The remaining 21 retreated, badly damaged and demoralized. The human fleet had lost 14 ships, but they'd achieved the impossible. They'd defeated a superior force. News of the battle spread across the galaxy faster than light. The other 6 empires heard about it with a mixture of disbelief and concern. The Zelkoth had been defeated? By primitives? The Krell Dominion's High Command convened an emergency session. Are we sure the reports are accurate? The Supreme Krell demanded. Yes, Excellence, his intelligence chief replied. The humans used unconventional tactics, suicide attacks, ramming, cyber warfare. They didn't fight like any known species. The Zelkoth fleet commander described it as barbaric and without honor. Honor is irrelevant if you're dead, the Supreme Krell observed. What is the human fleet strength? Approximately 15 ships remaining, Excellence. Negligible compared to our forces, however. However, they appear to be building more. And they're learning quickly. If they continue improving at this rate, they could become a genuine threat within a decade. The Vask Coalition had a similar discussion. So did the Thorn Empire, the Crystalline Collective, and the others. They all reached the same conclusions. Humanity was dangerous. Not because they were strong, they weren't, not yet, but because they fought differently. Because they didn't follow the rules. Because they seemed willing to sacrifice everything to achieve victory. Should we intervene? A Vask counselor asked. To help the Zelkoth? Another replied. Why would we? Let them deal with their own mistakes. If they can't handle one primitive species, perhaps they don't deserve their territory. That was the nature of galactic politics. The empires were rivals as much as they were neighbors. The Zelkoth's weakness was everyone else's opportunity. Back on Earth, humanity celebrated their victory. It wasn't complete. The Zelkoth still had forces in the system, but it was significant. They'd proven they could win. Admiral Chen addressed the fleet commanders and civilian leaders. This changes everything. We're not just a resistance anymore. We're a military force, and we need to think about what comes next. The Zelkoth will send more ships, bigger fleets. We need to be ready. We need allies, Dr. Okonkwo added. The Thren helped us, but they're few and weak. We need to find other species that hate the empires, other conquered peoples who might be willing to rise up. We need to make the Zelkoth regret they ever heard of Earth, Marcus said grimly. One victory isn't enough. We need to hit them again and again until they decide we're too expensive to fight. The plan that emerged was audacious. Humanity would take the offensive. They would strike at Zelkoth territories, hitting supply lines and mining operations. They would make the aliens pay in blood and resources for every day they remained in human space. The campaign began 3 months later. Human ships struck at Zelkoth facilities across a dozen star systems. They weren't trying to conquer territory, they didn't have the forces for that. They were trying to bleed the hegemony to make them hurt. The aliens called humanity rabid animals and mad dogs. They sent more fleets, but the humans were getting better at fighting. They learned from every battle, adapted to every tactic. Sarah's team reverse-engineered more alien technology, improving human shields and weapons. Marcus trained new pilots in the art of asymmetric warfare. Hit fast, hit hard, disappear. A year after the first major space battle, humanity controlled the entire solar system. The last Zelkoth forces had been eliminated or driven out. Earth was free. But freedom wasn't enough. Not after what had been done. Admiral Chen made the decision that would define humanity's future. We're not stopping at defense, he announced. We're going on the offensive. The Zelkoth started this war. We're going to finish it, and we're going to make sure the galaxy understands. Humanity is not prey. Not anymore. Never again. The message was broadcast to every corner of known space, translated into 1,000 languages. You came to our home uninvited. You burned our cities. You killed our people. You thought we would die quietly. You were wrong. We are humanity. We are coming for you, and we do not forgive. We do not forget. We do not stop. In the halls of power across the 7 empires, leaders heard that message and felt something they hadn't experienced in millennia. They felt afraid. The war exploded across the stars. What had begun as Earth's desperate struggle for survival became something much larger. Humanity wasn't just fighting back anymore. They were conquering. The Zelkoth hegemony committed 40% of their entire military to destroying humanity. It was an unprecedented mobilization for dealing with what they still called primitives. 300 warships, the largest fleet assembled in Zelkoth history, gathered at the border of human space. This ends now, High Commander Velkoth announced to his forces. The humans have made fools of us long enough. We will sweep through their territory and burn every last one of them from the stars. No mercy, no prisoners, total extermination. The fleet entered human space expecting to find scattered resistance ships and poorly defended colonies. What they found instead was a prepared enemy. Humanity had spent 3 years building. Not just ships, though, they'd built hundreds of those. They'd built bases in asteroid fields, hidden facilities in the atmospheres of gas giants, weapons platforms disguised as space debris. They'd turned dozens of star systems into fortresses, and they'd learned. The humans who fought now weren't the desperate survivors of 10 years ago. They were soldiers who'd studied every battle, every engagement, every tactical mistake and triumph. They'd analyzed how the Zelkoth fought and found all the weaknesses. The first battle of the war happened at Proxima Centauri, humanity's first interstellar colony. The Zelkoth fleet arrived expecting an easy victory. Instead, they flew into a carefully prepared kill zone. Human ships didn't meet them in open battle. They waited. When the Zelkoth fleet spread out to search for targets, the trap was sprung. Thousands of mines activated simultaneously, each one cheap and simple but effective. Railgun platforms hidden on asteroids opened fire. Missile batteries that had been dormant for months suddenly came alive, and the human fleet attacked from every direction at once. Marcus Torres, now promoted to Admiral of the Second Fleet, led the assault personally. All ships, execute dispersal pattern Delta, he ordered. Make them chase ghosts. The human doctrine had evolved far beyond simple hit-and-run tactics. They'd developed an entire philosophy of warfare that terrified the galaxy. It was called total warfare, and it had 3 principles: overwhelming, force when you could achieve it, guerrilla tactics when you couldn't, and absolutely no rules. The battle at Proxima lasted 3 days. The Zelkoth lost 70 ships. Humanity lost 35. But more importantly, humanity killed over 50,000 alien soldiers while losing fewer than 8,000 of their own. The math was changing. Dr. Sarah Okonkwo watched the battle reports from Earth, now fully rebuilt in many areas. The planet was still scarred, but humanity had learned to embrace those scars. They served as reminders of what had been lost and what could never be allowed to happen again. The equalizer is ready, she reported to Admiral Chen during their daily briefing. We can deploy it whenever you give the order. The equalizer was Sarah's masterpiece. 3 years of work combining human innovation with reverse-engineered, alien technology and help from half a dozen minor species who'd secretly allied with humanity. It was a weapon unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. It couldn't destroy planets or stars. It didn't need to. The equalizer was a cascading electromagnetic pulse generator that could disable every electronic system within a light-year radius. Once activated, it would spread through subspace like a virus, jumping from system to system along established FTL communication routes. It's a civilization killer, Sarah said quietly. Once we activate it in Zelkoth space, their entire empire will go dark. No ships, no computers, no communications. They'll be thrown back to the pre-industrial age in a matter of hours. And the other empires? Chen asked. They're not connected to Zelkoth systems, so they'll be safe. Unless we activate it in their territory too. Chen was silent for a long moment. The equalizer was the ultimate deterrent. It meant humanity could threaten any empire with complete technological collapse. It also meant those empires would be absolutely terrified of humanity. We hold it in reserve, Chen decided. But we make sure they know we have it. Fear is a weapon too. The war continued to expand. Human forces struck deep into Zelkoth territory, hitting mining worlds and trade routes. They weren't trying to conquer. They didn't have the population for that, but they could make the territory worthless. Scorched earth tactics extended across the stars. Other species began to notice. The Krell Dominion sent observers to human-controlled space, wanting to understand how such a small force could cause such damage to an established empire. What they saw disturbed them. They don't fight for honor or glory, the lead Krell observer reported. They fight to win by any means necessary. They use biological weapons, cyber attacks, psychological warfare. They target supply lines and civilian infrastructure. They take hostages. They make examples of prisoners to terrify enemy forces. They are, by our standards, completely without morals in warfare. And yet they're winning, the Supreme Krell observed. Yes, Excellence. Because while we fight with one hand tied behind our backs by rules and traditions, they fight with both hands, teeth, and anything else they can use. The report sparked fierce debates in Krell High Command. Some wanted to intervene against humanity before they became an even bigger threat. Others saw an opportunity. If humanity could defeat the Zelkoth, it would weaken a rival empire without the Krell having to risk their own forces. The Vask coalition was having similar discussions. So was every other empire. They watched the war with growing unease, realizing that humanity represented something new in galactic politics, something unpredictable and dangerous. Human diplomacy evolved alongside human warfare. Representatives from Earth reached out to conquered species across the galaxy. The message was simple. We were where you are. We were conquered and thought we'd lost forever. But we fought back, and now we're winning. Join us. Some species refused, too broken or afraid to resist. But others listened. The Thren had been first, but others followed. The Skan, whose homeworld had been stripped bare by the Thorn Empire. The Valix, enslaved by the Crystalline Collective for 3 generations. The Morphians, reduced to second-class citizens in Vask space. None of them were strong. None had significant military forces. But they had knowledge, resources, and most importantly, they had motivation. Humanity offered them something the empires never had: hope. We're building a coalition, Admiral Chen explained during a strategy session with human military leaders and representatives from allied species. Not an empire. We don't want to rule anyone, but together we can be strong enough that the empires have to respect us. The empires will see this as a threat, a Scan representative warned. They may unite against us. Then we make sure we're too strong to easily defeat, Marcus replied. We keep building, keep fortifying, keep improving. We make them understand that yes, they could probably destroy us if they all work together, but it would cost them everything. And while they're fighting us, they'd be vulnerable to each other. It was a dangerous game. Humanity was betting that the Empire's mutual mistrust would prevent them from uniting against a common threat. So far, the bet was paying off. The turning point came in year 13 of the war. Human intelligence discovered the location of a major Zelkoth shipyard, a massive facility where they built their capital ships. It was deep in Zelkoth space, considered absolutely secure. We should hit it, Marcus argued during the planning session. Destroy their ability to build new ships and we win the war. It's suicide, his tactical officer countered. They have 3 full defense fleets protecting that system. We'd never make it through. Then we don't go through, Sarah interjected. She'd been working on something new, combining human and Thren stealth technology. We go around, or rather under, she explained her plan. It was insane. It was brilliant. It would require perfect execution and enormous luck. But if it worked, 6 weeks later, a human fleet entered the system where the Zelkoth shipyard operated. Not in normal space, but in an unstable region of subspace that no sane navigator would enter. Sarah's modifications to their drives made it possible to travel there briefly, though the radiation exposure was extreme. They emerged inside the system's defensive perimeter, appearing on sensors for only seconds before launching their attack. Thousands of missiles, each one aimed at critical infrastructure. By the time the defense fleets could react, the shipyard was already breaking apart, centuries of construction burning in the cold of space. The human fleet vanished back into subspace before the Zelkoth could mount an effective response. They lost 4 ships to the radiation and defensive fire, but they destroyed a facility worth more than 1 trillion credits and centuries of labor. The Zelkoth leadership finally understood. They couldn't win this war, not without committing resources that would leave them vulnerable to the other empires, not without adopting tactics they considered beneath them, not without becoming as barbaric as the humans. High Commander Velkoth was recalled to the Zelkoth homeworld and stripped of his rank. The new High Commander was more pragmatic. She looked at the casualty reports, the economic damage, the sheer impossibility of fighting an enemy who refused to follow any predictable pattern, and made a decision. "Open communications with the human leadership," she ordered. "Arrange a meeting. It's time to negotiate." The word felt like poison in her mouth. The Zelkoth didn't negotiate with primitives, but humans weren't primitives anymore. They were a power that had bled the hegemony across 100 star systems. They were an enemy that couldn't be easily defeated. They were, whether anyone liked it or not, a force that had to be acknowledged. But humanity wasn't interested in simple peace, not yet. Admiral Chen received the Zelkoth communication request with cold satisfaction. "They want to talk? Good. But we're not meeting on neutral ground. We're not settling for a return to pre-war borders." "Sir?" his aide asked. "We're going to make an example," Chen said quietly. "We're going to show the galaxy what happens when you attack Earth. We're going to Zelkoth Prime." The plan was audacious to the point of madness. Strike at the Zelkoth homeworld itself, not to destroy it. That would make humanity as bad as the aliens who'd devastated Earth. But to demonstrate that humanity could reach anywhere, could threaten anything. The human fleet assembled. Over 200 ships, the largest force humanity had ever gathered. It included vessels from allied species, Thren scouts, scan supply ships, even a few Valix destroyers. It was a coalition fleet united by a single purpose. They jumped into Zelkoth Prime's system in a single massive wave. Alarms screamed across the homeworld as the sky filled with human ships. Orbital defenses activated, ready to repel the invasion. Then Sarah activated the equalizer. Every electronic system on Zelkoth Prime went dark simultaneously. Shields failed. Weapons platforms went offline. Communications ceased. Power grids collapsed. 5 billion Zelkoth found themselves suddenly living in darkness, their advanced civilization reduced to helplessness in an instant. The human fleet surrounded the planet, weapons charged but not firing. They just waited, a silent threat hanging in the black of space. Admiral Chen broadcasted on all frequencies, knowing that emergency systems would eventually restore some communications. "People of Zelkoth Prime, hear us. We are humanity. 13 years ago, your empire came to our world. You killed billions of us. You tried to erase us from existence. You failed." He paused, letting that sink in. "We could destroy your world right now. We have the power, but we're not like you. We don't murder civilians. We don't destroy homeworlds. We're giving you a choice. Surrender the commanders who ordered Earth's destruction. Pay reparations for the damage you caused. Withdraw from all human-claimed space. Do this and we'll restore your power and leave in peace. Refuse and we'll leave you in darkness. Your civilization will collapse. Your empire will fall, and we'll move on to the next world. Choose." The silence that followed was deafening. On Zelkoth Prime and bunkers deep underground, the hegemony leadership convened by candlelight to discuss the impossible. They'd been conquered without a shot being fired. Their homeworld was hostage. Their mighty empire had been brought to its knees by the species they dismissed as primitives. In the end, they had no choice. The alternative was civilizational collapse. 3 hours after Chen's broadcast, the Zelkoth agreed to every demand. The war was over. Humanity had won. The Nexus was humanity's statement to the galaxy, built in orbit around Earth. It was a massive space station that combined human architecture with designs from a dozen allied species. It wasn't the largest station in the galaxy, not even close, but it was the most significant. Because this was where the empires came to bow. Admiral Chen stood in the main conference chamber looking out at Earth below. The planet was healing. Cities were being rebuilt. Forests replanted. Oceans cleaned of the pollution left by Zelkoth mining. It would take generations to fully restore what had been lost, but humanity was patient. They'd learned patience in the dark years. "They're arriving," Dr. Sarah Okonkwo said, checking her datapad. She looked older now, gray in her hair and lines on her face. 13 years of war-aged people. But her eyes were still sharp, still brilliant. All 7 empires sent their representatives. "This is really happening." "They don't have a choice," Marcus Torres said. He wore the uniform of the United Earth Fleet now, decorated with medals he'd earned in blood. "We made sure of that." The representatives arrived one by one, their ships escorted by human vessels. It was a calculated display of power. "You come to Earth on our terms, under our guns." The message was clear. The Zelkoth came first, as was appropriate for the empire that had started everything. Their representative was High Commander Siltara, the pragmatist who'd ended the war. She walked into the conference chamber with her back straight and her 4 eyes showing no emotion. But Chen had learned to read Zelkoth body language. The slight tilt of her head, the tension in her shoulders, she was afraid. Good, Chen thought. Let them all be afraid. The Krell Dominion sent their supreme commander, a massive being that stood 8 feet tall with scales like polished bronze. The vast coalition sent a delegation of 3, as was their custom. The Thorn Empire's representative was thin and elegant with skin like bark. The Crystalline Collective sent a being made of living crystal that hummed with internal light. The Mulsith dynasty and the Federation of Azure Suns completed the gathering. 7 empires, the powers that had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years. All of them gathered in human space at humanity's invitation, waiting to hear what humanity wanted. Chen let them wait. It was petty perhaps, but he remembered waiting in bunkers while his world burned. He remembered 8 years of hiding like an animal. A few minutes of discomfort for these representatives seemed fair. Finally, he entered the chamber, flanked by Marcus and Sarah, 3 humans who'd survived the end of their world and fought their way to this moment. Behind them came representatives from humanity's allies, the Thren Elder who'd helped from the beginning, Scan Warriors, Velix Engineers, Morphean Diplomats, all the species that the empires had conquered and dismissed as unimportant. "Thank you for coming," Chen said, his voice carrying through the chamber. "I know this isn't the usual way galactic diplomacy works. Normally you would meet on neutral ground. You would negotiate from positions of equal power, but we're not in normal times, are we?" The Krell Supreme Commander shifted his massive bulk. "You asked us here, human. What do you want? Territory? Resources? If you think you can dictate terms to 7 empires, we can," Marcus interrupted quietly. "Want us to prove it again? We can have your homeworld in darkness within the hour." The threat hung in the air. Everyone in the room knew it wasn't a bluff. The equalizer had been used once. It could be used again. Every empire's infrastructure, every system, every technology they relied on could be shut down permanently. Humanity had demonstrated that capability beyond any doubt. "We're not here to threaten," Chen said, shooting Marcus a look. "We're here to propose something new. A new way for the galaxy to function." "Explain," Siltara said, speaking for the first time. Her voice was calm, controlled. "What do you want from us?" Sarah stepped forward, activating a holographic display. "For thousands of years, you've fought each other. Border wars, resource disputes, territory exchanges. You've developed elaborate rules for your conflicts. Don't target civilians. Don't use certain weapons. Don't attack homeworlds. These rules kept your wars manageable, prevented total destruction. The rules maintain civilization," the crystalline representative chimed, its voice like wind through glass. "Without them, we would have destroyed each other long ago." "Maybe," Sarah agreed. "But your rules had a problem. They only applied to you, the 7 great empires. Everyone else, the minor species, the conquered peoples, the pre-spaceflight civilizations, they didn't count. You could do whatever you wanted to them because they weren't part of your club. Primitives have no rights under galactic law," the Vask delegation leader said. "It has always been this way." "It has always been wrong," Chen replied, his voice hard. "You came to Earth, you killed 5 billion people. You destroyed our cities, our history, our future, and you did it without a second thought because we were primitives. We didn't count. And now you want revenge?" Siltara said quietly. "You want us to pay for what was done to your world. We already made you pay," Marcus said. "We won the war," The Zelkoth Empire is half of what it was before you attacked us. Your economy is in ruins. Your military is broken. We could finish the job if we wanted. But that's not what we want. Then what? The Supreme Krell demanded. Stop playing games, human. Chen pulled up a document on the holographic display. We call them the Terran Accords. A new set of laws for the galaxy. They're non-negotiable, but they're also fair. Here are the terms. He read them aloud, watching the representatives' reactions. 1. All sentient species have inherent rights, regardless of technological level. Conquest of pre-spaceflight civilizations is prohibited. Genocide is prohibited. Slavery is prohibited. Impossible, the Molsith representative hissed. Our economy is built on conquered labor. Then rebuild your economy, Sarah said coldly. We did. After you helped destroy ours. 2. Disputes between spacefaring nations must be settled through negotiation or regulated military engagement. Total war is prohibited. Use of weapons of mass destruction on inhabited worlds is prohibited. We already follow these rules, the Thorn representative said. Among yourselves, Chen agreed. Now you'll follow them with everyone, including species you consider beneath you. 3. War crimes will be prosecuted by an independent tribunal. This includes those who ordered the destruction of Earth. High Commander Velkoth and his staff will stand trial for their actions. Siltara stiffened. You would put our people on trial? Make an example of them? Yes, Chen said simply. Justice demands it. Billions died. Someone has to answer for that. 4. Reparations will be paid by the Zelkoth hegemony to Earth and other affected species. The amount and schedule will be determined by the tribunal. This will bankrupt us, Siltara protested. You bankrupted us first, Marcus replied. You're still getting off easy. We could have turned your homeworld into a crater like you did to ours. We chose mercy. Don't make us regret it. 5. An independent peacekeeping force will be established to enforce these accords. This force will consist of volunteers from all species and will have the authority to intervene in conflicts. You mean a human force, the Supreme Krell said. You want to police the galaxy? We want to make sure what happened to us never happens to anyone else, Sarah said. If that means we have to enforce rules on empires that think might makes right, then yes, we'll do that. The representatives were silent, processing what they'd heard. Finally, the Vask delegation leader spoke.
And if we refuse?
If we reject these accords, Chen smiled, but there was no humor in it, then we share the equalizer technology with every species you've conquered. The Thren, the Scan, the Valix, the Morphians, and dozens of others. We've already approached them. They're very interested in having the ability to shut down your technology whenever they choose. Imagine your empires trying to function when every minor species has the power to cripple you. How long do you think you'd last? The threat was devastating because it was achievable. The representatives looked at each other, realizing that humanity had created a situation where they had no good options. Accept the accords and submit to human-imposed rules, or reject them and face endless asymmetric warfare from 100 liberated species. This is blackmail, Siltara said. Yes, Chen agreed. We learned from the best. You used force to impose your will on weaker species. Now we're using force to impose rules that protect those species. The difference is our rules are fair. Everyone follows them, including us. The Krell Supreme Commander stood, his massive form dominating the room. For a moment, Chen thought he might refuse, might choose to fight. Then the Supreme Commander spoke. The Dominion signs. We choose survival over pride. That broke the dam. The Vask delegation conferred briefly, then agreed. The crystalline representative chimed its assent. One by one, they all agreed, except the Zelkoth. Siltara stood alone, her 4 eyes burning with barely controlled rage. You want us to sign a document that admits our crimes. That puts our leaders on trial. That makes us pay for doing what empires have always done. Expanding, conquering, taking what we need. You want us to be humiliated before the entire galaxy. Yes, Chen said quietly. Because that's the only way you'll understand. That's the only way any of you will understand. There are consequences now. You can't just do whatever you want to weaker species anymore. The galaxy has changed, and if we refuse? Siltara asked. If we choose to fight? Marcus leaned forward. Then we go back to war. And this time we don't stop at Zelkoth Prime. We keep going until your empire is ash. How many homeworlds are you willing to lose, Commander? How many billions of your people are you willing to sacrifice because you can't admit you were wrong? The silence stretched. Everyone in the room waited to see what the Zelkoth would choose. Pride or survival? Finally, Siltara's shoulders sagged slightly. We sign. The hegemony accepts the Terran Accords. The relief in the room was palpable. Chen felt it himself, though he didn't show it. They'd been prepared to go back to war if necessary, but it would have cost millions more lives. This was better. This was the future he'd fought for. Good, Chen said. The Accords will go into effect immediately. The tribunal will convene within 60 days to begin hearing cases. Peacekeeping forces will be organized and deployed to disputed territories. This is a new era for the galaxy. Let's make sure it's better than the last one. The representatives filed out, escorted back to their ships. Only the representatives from humanity's allies remained. The Thren Elder approached Chen with something like wonder in his eyes. You did it, the Elder said softly. You changed the galaxy. In 13 years, you went from a conquered species to the most powerful force in known space. It's incredible. It's necessary, Chen replied. We couldn't let what happened to us happen to anyone else. If that meant rewriting the rules of civilization, then that's what we had to do. Sarah was already working on implementation details, her mind focused on the practical aspects of enforcing the Accords. Marcus was coordinating with military leaders, planning how to deploy peacekeeping forces. They worked through the night and into the next day. There was so much to do, so much to organize, but for the first time in 13 years, they were working toward peace instead of war. Months passed. The tribunal convicted Velkoth and his senior staff of crimes against sentience. They were sentenced to imprisonment, not execution. Humanity wanted justice, not revenge. Reparations began flowing to Earth and other affected species. Zelkoth resources helped rebuild what they'd destroyed. The peacekeeping force, officially named the Sentinel Corps, deployed to its first mission, mediating a border dispute between the Krell and the Vask. Both empires had been ready to fight over a mineral-rich system. Instead, they negotiated under Sentinel supervision. The system was split fairly, no shots were fired, it was working. Earth continued to heal. The scars remained. No one wanted to forget what had happened. But new cities rose from the ruins. Parks replaced craters. Life returned to dead zones. Children who'd been born after the invasion knew the stories but grew up in a world that was rebuilding. Healing, looking forward. A monument was erected in what used to be Geneva, where Dr. Okonkwo had watched the world end. It was a massive wall with names, all 5 billion of them. Every person who'd died in the invasion was recorded there, each name carved in stone that would last for millennia. At the base of the monument, an inscription read, "Never again, never forgotten, never defeated." Chen stood before that monument on the 13th anniversary of the invasion. He was older now, considering retirement. Marcus had already stepped down, wanting to spend time with his daughter and grandchildren. Sarah still worked, unable to stop innovating even in peacetime. "Do you think we did the right thing?" Sarah asked, standing beside him at the monument. "Forcing the Accords on the galaxy? Making ourselves the enforcers of rules we created?" Chen considered the question carefully. "I think we did the necessary thing." "Was it perfect?" "No. Will there be problems?" "Absolutely. But the old way led to earth burning. The new way at least gives species a chance to defend themselves, gives them rights, protects them from what we went through." "We made a lot of enemies," Sarah observed. "We made more friends," Chen countered. "Every species that was conquered, enslaved, or dismissed as primitive now has hope. They look to humanity as proof that the empires can be challenged, can be beaten, can be forced to change. That matters." They stood in silence, reading names on the wall. So many names. "So much loss, they thought we were weak," Sarah said finally. "The Zelkoth. They thought kindness meant we couldn't fight. That caring about others made us soft. They learned different," Chen said. "We were kind because we were strong. We fought because we cared, and in the end that made all the difference." Above them, ships passed through the sky. Human vessels, Thren scouts, scan freighters, all moving freely through space that had once been forbidden to them. The galaxy was changing slowly but surely. It would take time to fully implement the Accords. Some empires would resist, finding loopholes or testing boundaries. There would be conflicts, challenges, setbacks. But humanity had learned patience in the dark years after the invasion. They would enforce the rules they'd created, not through cruelty but through determination. The Sentinel Corps grew steadily, recruiting from hundreds of species. Ships bearing the Terran Accord symbol patrolled the galaxy, responding to distress calls, mediating disputes, protecting the vulnerable. They weren't always successful, but they tried. And that was what mattered. Years later, Chen received a message from an unexpected source. High Commander Siltara requested a private meeting. Chen agreed, curious what the Zelkoth wanted. They met in a small room on the Nexus, just the two of them. Siltara looked diminished somehow, less imperious than she'd been at the signing of the Accords. "I came to apologize," she said without preamble, "for what was done to your world. I know it changes nothing. I know billions died, but I wanted you to hear it from one of us. What we did was wrong, inexcusable." Chen studied her carefully, looking for deception. He found only sincerity. "Why now? Why apologize years after the fact?" "Because I understand now," Siltara said quietly. "For thousands of years we saw lesser species as things, not people. Resources to exploit, obstacles to remove. We never thought about their pain, their losses. Then you made us feel it. You made us experience what we'd done to others. The equalizer, the siege of our homeworld. For the first time, we were the ones suffering. And I finally understood what we'd inflicted on your people." She paused, her four eyes meeting his. "The Terran Accords are harsh. They limit our power, force us to pay reparations, hold us accountable for our actions. But they're not cruel. You could have destroyed us. Instead, you made us better, made the galaxy better. I never thought I'd say this to a human, but thank you." Chen felt something release in his chest, a tension he'd been carrying for 15 years. "The people who died can't hear your apology, but I can carry it to their memory. It doesn't absolve you, but it's a start." They talked for another hour, discussing implementation of the Accords, challenges faced by both species, hopes for the future. When Siltara left, Chen felt something he hadn't expected to feel about a Zelkoth. Not friendship, but perhaps the beginning of mutual respect. The galaxy continued to evolve. New species joined the galactic community under the protection of the Accords. Old empires adapted to the new reality, some gracefully and others grudgingly. Humanity remained vigilant, ready to enforce the rules they'd created. But Earth also moved forward. The last of the ruins were cleared away. New technologies, developed through collaboration with allied species, improved life for everyone. Human culture spread through the galaxy. Music, art, literature, and humanity absorbed the cultures of others in return. On the day Admiral Chen finally retired, he gave one last speech to the assembled Sentinel Corps. "We were nearly destroyed," he told them. "We were beaten down, written off as primitives, dismissed as insignificant. But we survived. We fought back, we won, not because we were stronger, but because we refused to give up, because we stood for something more than just ourselves." He looked at the faces before him, human, Thren, Skan, Valix, even a few Zelkoth who'd volunteered to serve. "You carry that legacy forward. You enforce rules that protect the weak. You stand between the powerful and their victims. You show the galaxy that might doesn't make right. That's the future we fought for. That's the peace we bought with blood and sacrifice. Don't let it be wasted." The applause that followed echoed through the station. Chen stepped down from the podium and walked away, ready for retirement, ready to let others carry the torch. Behind him, in the conference chamber where the Accords had been signed, a plaque had been installed. It bore a simple message that summarized everything humanity had learned and taught the galaxy. They thought we were weak because we were kind. They learned we were kind because we were strong. Never underestimate the species that refuses to die. And across the galaxy on 1,000 worlds, billions of beings lived their lives under rules that protected them, gave them rights, granted them dignity. They didn't all know about Earth's history, about the invasion and the war and the victory. But they benefited from it every day. That was humanity's legacy. Not conquest or domination, but the simple, radical idea that all species deserve to be treated with respect. It had taken fire and blood to teach that lesson to the galaxy, but it had been worth it. Earth endured, humanity thrived, and the galaxy was better for both.